reasons why it is frightening for parents is that you go through the gestation period and you have a child born healthy, seemingly healthy, and then 6 months, okay, you're going through online, what's the development at 6 months, you read your book, in 7 months you should be doing this, you should be doing this, okay, we're on target, exactly, and maybe not so fast in this area, but that's okay, he'll catch up. And as you said before, we say that boys takes a little bit longer for them to do some things than others, and then we get closer to 2 years, and then we're realizing that we actually have a serious problem. I mean, is there any way to diagnose anything for parents? And it's the parents, I understand, who know. They have this kind of sixth sense, and they kind of know that there's something that is not quite right with their child, and they bring it to the attention of their pediatrician. Is there any way that you can diagnose this any earlier than 18 or 15 months?
It is very difficult because of the fact that the developmental stages, it is hard to see. If a child's not supposed to be talking till about 2 years old, it's very difficult to diagnose it younger. However, there are people that are working on it. But there are some signs that parents can look for. For example, if a child was talking and then stops, any sign of regression at all, you should definitely go and start talking to somebody. And I think sometimes that parents are scared to go to their pediatrician because they don't want the pediatrician to be like, here, don't worry, but it's better to try. Some other things are poor eye contact, a real lack of engagement, and enjoying others, because there can be the lack of communication, and that could just be slow for some children. However, if there's a lack of communication, there's this repetitiveness, the same.
Can you explain why a child who's autistic might have that kind of characteristic of the repetition of trying to? Yeah, can you explain that a little?
Yeah, one of the characteristic signs that you'll hear people say is the rocking back and forth. Like Ken said, some of that sameness, like A, B, C, D, but it always has to be in the same order. Yeah. You can't go out of order. If you'll see the behavior issues because we went to the doctor today, and we usually don't go to the doctor.
Okay. Anything that's unusual.
Yeah, that often happens.
Is that some type of kind of control because of not being able to express themselves in other ways, that they find a sense of safety and security and control by doing things in a repetition?
I think there's some security in the repetitive and the structured environment, and that's very important to our kids. They get scared when they're outside of their routine quite a bit, so it's important to provide some of our kids some of that structure. I think a lot of the flapping or the rocking is their response to senses that are taking in. These kids are often hypersensitive or not sensitive at all to external stimulus like we feel. So some of them can't wear certain clothes, or noises or different sensations really affect them tremendously more than they do typical people. So that reacts in a kind of a stimulatory behavior.
So when you got the call from your cousin, your wife's cousin, and she says, I think there's something going on with Cameron, what was your next step? Did you go to the pediatrician? Did you start Googling? And then you said, well, he may be autistic?
We did both. We went to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician wasn't convinced at the time that it was autism, and luckily my wife's pretty tenacious, and she really was pretty focused in finding out and tapping into the community, and again finding out resources, and then and again hooking us up with the Autism Society. One of the problems we have is we're diagnosing 1 out of 150 kids. In Cincinnati, there's about 30,000 kids born in our hospitals. That's 100 kids a year, 200 kids a year, one every 1.5 days. There's not enough resources locally to do that diagnosis. So when you first find out you're going to get a diagnosis, you find out quickly you're on a waiting list for several months or a year to kind of access services.
Really?
So that's a big challenge that the families face right now. It's just we have great people in this area, just not enough of them to really handle the load that we have.
When we come back, we'll have more with Ken Jones and Carrie Schuetz. They'll give us some insight on how you can navigate through the system to get connected to those resources to help you and your family, or someone who you know who may have a child who's autistic. Welcome back to Cincinnati Matters. I'm Regina Russo. We're talking about autism today. Carrie Schuetz is a behavioral specialist. And also, you're the president of an affiliated organization with the Autism Society of Greater Cincinnati. What organization is that?
It is Families for Effective Autism Treatment.
Okay. And Kim Jones, you are with the Autism Society of Greater Cincinnati, and your son is 5 years old. And how is he doing?
He's doing well. He's doing well. We just put him in school, so he's in preschool right now, and he's doing great. And he rides the bus, and you know, he's really coming along. He's starting to speak and, you know, kind of one-word requests.
Right.
And you know, sometimes he's a blast, and other times he's, you know, driving us up a wall.
Like every 5-year-old.
Yeah, just probably to a little bit of an exaggerated extent, but
right.
yeah. Yep.
So tell me, after you were finally diagnosed, how long did it take to get diagnosed?
We ended up going up to Children's Columbus to get Cameron diagnosed because the waiting list in Cincinnati was so long, and then we were able to eventually get in Children's in Cincinnati. And I want to say that process took about 4 months to get up to Columbus.
How do you handle your daily life? How do you manage a child who's autistic while you're waiting to get diagnosed, waiting for the results, and then waiting to find out what the resources are available?
And trying to learn what the heck
What's
it even
going on?
is.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you do that?
It was very, very difficult, and really, you know, my wife really runs the show with regard to Cameron's program and does an amazing job, and it is like running a business. I mean, she's continuously out there looking for resources. We have about 6 or 7 young women like Carrie who come to our house and actually do the ABA and the different programs in addition to speech and OT. So she's got a whole thing running that she's trying to manage in addition to finding ways to pay for it. So.
Right, because as we know, as we were talking earlier, that it's not covered by insurance. The therapy and the resources that you need to help a child with autism, not covered by insurance, Carrie?
No, there is no insurance available at this time. There are a couple other things like waivers through MRDD that are available. The only other thing that's available right now would be the Autism Scholarship, which you can opt out of sending your child to the public school and send them to a private center.
What's the annual cost of treating a child with autism?
The statistics I've read say on average about $40,000, and my experience is pretty close to that, depending on how involved you get your kid. You know, the therapy for these children is anywhere from 10 or 15 to 40 hours a week of therapy that these kids need. And Cameron's in about 25 hours of therapy a week right now, and all those folks get paid, and they do a great job, but, you know, it's tremendous expense. So
how does the Autism Society of Greater Cincinnati fit into all this puzzle? How do you help families?
Well, we try to help them on several different levels. First, I like to think of us as kind of a first responder. If a family does receive a diagnosis or a phone call the Autism Society. We have an autism packet that has a lot of detailed information in it as far as different organizations, some information about the different therapies that are out there and what you might hear and what you might find. We don't tell people do this and then do that and do this because, as we said, each child is different, but we do want to make families aware of what's out there and where to go. That's the first thing that we do. We do a lot in the way of education. We try to bring in nationally renowned speakers. We try to do training sessions on ABA therapy or whatever topics of interest that families may need. We do support groups for families. So we try to, you know, provide opportunities for families to get together and share some of their experiences and maybe cry on each other's shoulder a little bit about having a child with autism.
And there's great benefit in that.
Oh, yeah. You really need a community around you because your child doesn't necessarily fit in to the typical community, which leads to the social events that we do between the Autism Society and FEET. We try to provide social opportunities for families to bring their kids where their kids can run wild and they can misbehave and do all the things that children with autism do and not have to worry about being judged by the people behind you and the people in front of you. We rent out the Children's Museum every year down at the Museum Center and make that available for free to families, and the kids just have a ball. They just run through there, and parents don't have to worry, and FEET does the movie theater events. Those are tremendously helpful. And then finally we try to invest in research.
Okay.
We think it's important to invest in research. We have great people down at Cincinnati Children's. We try to collaborate a lot with the Kelly O'Leary Center and support their work. Last year we funded Dr. Cindy Malloy. She's doing what I call the gene hunting research, of identifying really how the genetics play into this. So there's a lot of things we're